question here. Why do Iranians chant death to America? I mean, you must have probably seen it on the news, crowds in the streets, flags burning, fists in the air. And if you grew up in the West, you might probably just say the Iranians are extreme, they hate our values, they hate our cultures, they hate our freedom. But what if I told you there's a specific reason, a specific event, a specific decision that was made on a specific morning in 1953? And I genuinely think this is one of the most important stories of the last 100 years, and almost nobody knows about it. What if I told you Britain and America secretly destroyed Iran's democracy? They overthrew their democratically elected prime minister and put the king they wanted as the leader of Iran. He was called the Shah. And all of this wasn't because Iran was a threat, not because Iran was building nuclear weapons, but because of Iran's oil. This is the story of Operation Ajax. This is the story of CIA's first successful coup, the operation that ruined Iran's democracy and set the motion for the chain of events that the world is still living with right now. And for 60 years, the CIA denied it, kept it classified and hidden. The CIA never fully admitted to what happened until 2013. So let's talk about it now. So for us to understand what happened in 1953, we need to go back to 1901. In 1901, a British businessman named William Knox Darcy signed or cut a deal with the King of Persia. And what was this deal? He got the right to own, explore, drill, and profit from Iran's oil all across most of the country. And what did Iran get in return? 20,000 pounds upfront and 16% of the entire profit. 16% of their own oil, of their own land. What was called Persia is now called Iran today. So by the 1940s, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, which is today called the British Petroleum, was extracting enormous amounts of oil from Iran. It was considered one of the most profitable operations on earth. The British government owned like 50% of the company. And in 1947, the company made 14 million pounds in profits. And guess what was Iran's share? Just 7 million pounds. That was less than 20% of the profits of their own oil. While British workers were being paid multiple of what Iranian oil workers were paid. The Iranian workers lived in slums. They had no sick leaves. They lived outside the refinery walls. They had no vacations, and they were just paid 50 cents per day. But for the British workers that did the same work like the Iranians, they had swimming pools, they lived within the refinery walls, they had clubs, and they lived in housing estates. To make it worse, the Iranians were not allowed to audit the company books. That's to tell you that they didn't even know how much was being made or how much oil was being taken from them. I mean, the British just told them what their cut was at the end of the day, and they just took their word for it. And this went on for 50 years until one man said enough was enough. His name was Mohammed Mossadegh. He was a 71-year-old educated lawyer who fought for decades for the democracy of Iran. He believed in the parliament, he believed in the rule of law, and he believed in the rights of the Iranian people. In 1931, he became the Prime Minister of Iran. He was not a revolutionary, he was not a radical. And in the same 1951, in April, Times magazine named him the Person of the Year. As a matter of fact, the United States recognized and celebrated him as one of the most democratic leaders in the Middle East. And when he became the Prime Minister, he did something that the Iranian parliament had voted for overwhelmingly. He nationalized the Iranian oil industry. That's it. He said, this is our oil and we are taking it back. And the people of Iran were filled with absolute joy. I mean, it was their land, it was their oil, it was their future. It was not like Mossadegh was stealing anything from anybody. He was simply reclaiming what had been theirs for a very long time. But Britain didn't feel this way. So what did Britain do? Britain imposed an economic blockade on Iran. Iran's oil was not to be sold internationally. He told all the buyers that Iranian oil was being stolen. It was stolen property. And then he took the case to court, Britain, took the case to court, to the International Court of Justice. But the court ruled in the favor of Mossadegh and the people of Iran. I mean, Mossadegh had won the people of Britain legally, diplomatically, and he seemed unbreakable. But Britain was not satisfied with the outcome of things, and so he went to the United States. He told them, we need to remove this man from office. At first, the United States said no. I mean, the president of the United States at the time, President Truman, understood Mossadegh, understood that the Iranian people had legitimate grievances, and he was not about to remove a democratically elected prime minister from office just because of British oil profits or oil interests. But then, in 1952, a different administration came into power, led by Dwight Eisenhower, and that was when everything changed. Britain was able to convince the president of the United States, the new administration, that they had to remove Mossadegh. With one word, he convinced him with one word. That was communism. I will explain. This whole crisis was happening during the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States. And it so happened that the Soviet Union was Iran's northern neighbor. So Britain was able to tell Dwight Eisenhower, the new administration, that if they do not remove Mossadegh, that the Soviet Union was going to get Mossadegh and they were going to spread communism and all of their oil was going to go to the Soviet Union. And Dwight Eisenhower believed. And so in 1953, he approved the coup. The operation was codenamed TP Ajax by the CIA of the United States, while the British named theirs Operation Boots. And the man they sent to pull off this job is one of the extraordinary figures in Cold War history. So on July 19, 1953, a man stepped off the plane in Tehran with glasses, and he was traveling under a fake name, James Lockwood. But his real name was Kermit Roosevelt Jr. He was the grandson of the former president of the United States, Theodore Roosevelt, and he was the chief of the CIA operations in the Middle East. He was carrying a briefcase full of cash with him. And so for the next 30 days, Kermit Roosevelt dismantled the Iranian democracy from the inside. He paid literally everybody. He bribed newspaper editors to run fake anti-Mossadegh stories. He paid military officers to switch their loyalty to the Shah. He even paid Islamic preachers to denounce Mossadegh from the pulpit. He hired street gangs to act or pretend like they were Mossadegh supporters and then commit violence so as to give the prime minister a bad name and make him look dangerous. He literally created chaos on the streets of Tehran, and then he pointed at Mossadegh as the cause of it. And then the first coup attempt came on August 15, 1953. It went badly. It failed because Mossadegh had been tipped off and warned. Mossadegh was able to arrest the conspirators. And then the United States sent a telegram to Kermit Roosevelt ordering him to stand down, that the operation was over. But he ignored the telegram. As a matter of fact, years later, he claimed he never received any telegraph. I mean, how convenient. 4 days later, the second coup attempt came on August 19, 1953. This time it came with tanks on the streets. It came with bribed military units surrounding Mossadegh's house. But by nightfall, it was over. Mossadegh fled his house in pajamas. But the next day, he surrendered. And that was the end of Iran's democracy. Mossadegh was arrested. He was tried for treason by a military court, and he was sentenced to 3 years in prison. And he died in 1967. He was never freed, never rehabilitated. The man who the Times magazine called Person of the Year spent the last 14 years of his life as a prisoner in his own home. And then the Shah, who the United States have always wanted to be the ruler of Iran, came into power. And he ruled with full confidence, knowing that the United States had his backing and nothing would happen to him as long as the United States were involved. He created a secret police which he called the Savak. The Savak arrested, tortured, and murdered thousands of political opponents. The Shah ruled like an absolute dictator because, of course, he had the United States backing. And I know you might be asking in your mind, what about the oil? Yeah. Well, after the coup, a new deal was negotiated. And 40% of the profits from the oil was given to Britain back. And then the United States and some of the American companies like Exxon and Mobil got significant shares as well. I mean, that was the point of the whole coup, right? The oil was back into Western hands. For 26 years, the Shah ruled, and for 26 years, the anger of the people of Iran built, because they knew that they had lost their democracy to America, and that America had installed this man in power, and his secret police was torturing their people. So in 1979, the people of Iran said they've had enough, and they finally exploded. There was an Islamic revolution, and the Shah fled the country. And then there was a new government led by Ayatollah Khomeini, an Islamic cleric. And one of the first things the revolutionaries did was to storm the US embassy in Tehran and take 52 American diplomats hostage for 444 days. I mean, they called it the Den of Spies. The US embassy was called the Den of Spies. And they were not entirely wrong. So whenever you see Iran and America having a face-off, you should remember the story. Remember, there was a 71-year-old educated lawyer who just wanted his country's oil back. Remember the CIA chief who was sent to destroy Iran's democracy for 30 days. Don't forget that actions have consequences, and the decisions that were made by powerful people in 1953 are still being paid for till today by Iranians, by Americans, by the people in the Middle East region. So let me know, have you heard of Operation Ajax before, or is this story new to you? Let me know in the comment section. Don't forget to share the story to someone who might need this context. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for real world events that is being broken down without confusion. I'm Miriam, and see you in my next video. Bye.